Picture this. You're walking down the street and catch a snippet of a song from your childhood out of the corner of your ear. You smile, maybe, and keep walking. Now imagine a different scenario. You pick up a faint scent, old parquet flooring, a damp basement, or that soap they used to mop the floors in your kindergarten. In a millisecond, you're literally yanked by the scruff of the neck 20 years into the past. You don't just remember, you physically feel that exact childhood anxiety, the light streaming through the window, the texture of the wallpaper, even the draft on your skin. This isn't nostalgia. This is an instant, biologically hardwired hallucination. Why do your eyes and ears politely suggest you recall the past, while your nose simply takes your consciousness hostage and forces you through a time warp? So you don't have to frantically search for this video later by typing, "That clip about smells and a crazy surgeon with toast," just hit like and subscribe right now. Your brain will eventually forget this, but YouTube will remember. Let's go back to 1938, the Montreal Neurological Institute. A patient with severe epilepsy lies on the operating table. His skull is open, but he's fully conscious. Back then, this was standard. Local anesthesia numbed the pain in the skin and bone, but the brain itself has no pain receptors. The patient could calmly chat with the doctors while they poked around his gray matter. At the controls is Canadian neurosurgeon Wilder Penfield. His mission? Find and burn out the tiny brain region triggering the seizures without damaging vital centers. Penfield picks up a thin metal electrode and begins gently stimulating different areas of the cortex with a weak current of a few volts, watching the patient's reactions. The surgeon touches the temporal lobe, the area where our olfactory cortex hides. Suddenly, the patient sniffs sharply and says, startled, "Doctor, I distinctly smell burnt toast." There are no toasters on the operating table. The sterile OR only smells of chlorine and nitrous oxide. But to the patient, that smell is absolutely real. And that's just the beginning. Along with the phantom scent, an avalanche of details crashes down on the poor guy. He's instantly back in his mother's kitchen, sees the color of the tablecloth, feels the morning draft from the window, and the familiar childhood dread of being late for school. Penfield removes the electrode, the memory vanishes. He touches it again, and the patient relives the exact same moment, down to the second. Before this experiment, science believed human memory was like a neat filing cabinet. You request the 1995 file, your consciousness pulls out a yellowed paper, you read it, and put it back. Penfield proved otherwise. Our memory is not an archive of dead documents. It's an incredibly complex, wet biological VCR that records reality in full resolution, sounds, emotions, and above all, smells. And these recordings never fade. They just sit on the back shelves of your subconscious, waiting for someone to hit play. The irony is that in everyday life, we don't have access to the controls of that tape recorder. You can't just will yourself to remember exactly what your grandmother's room smelled like 40 years ago. Your brain will fruitlessly fumble through abstract words like dust, geraniums, or old books. But the moment a real, physical molecule of that scent accidentally drifts into your nostril, the dam breaks. An ancient part of your brain hits play without your permission. You become a spectator in the cinema of your own mind, and the movie is playing in full sensory immersion. We like to think of ourselves as highly advanced beings. We write code, debate quantum physics, and make plans decades into the future, convinced we're in complete control of our minds. But the truth is, all our celebrated rationality is just a thin glaze over a massive, dark cake of primal instincts and ancient biology. And this whole complex system of control crumbles to dust in the face of an ordinary chemical compound. You can close your eyes to avoid seeing something unpleasant. You can cover your ears to avoid hearing a lie. But you can't stop breathing. Which means you are utterly defenseless against what's floating in the air. Your eyes and ears are like expensive modern digital cameras. They obediently compress information, drop unnecessary pixels, and coordinate the image with your conscious mind. Your nose is an old analog wire that was routed directly to the nuclear reactor of your brain back when our ancestors were blind worms in the primordial soup. And nobody is planning to dismantle that wire. Why did evolution leave this vulnerability in our defenses? Why didn't nature equip our sense of smell with the same reliable filters that our eyes or ears have? To understand that, we have to pop the hood on our skull and see how the custom system of the human brain works. What we'll find is a shocking fact. While your eyes are diligently reporting to your consciousness about what's happening around you, your nose has already pulled off a deal behind your back. So, how exactly does our nose manage to bypass the mind's customs? To grasp this mechanism, imagine your brain is a huge government corporation with a paranoid security system. This corporation has a main distribution hub, a tough and incorruptible director of logistics. In neuroscience, he's called the thalamus. All our senses are like outside petitioners, trying to get their reports to the CEO. That is, our conscious cortex. You open your eyes, photons of light hit your retina, turn into electrical impulses, and obediently line up for an appointment with the thalamus. He carefully reviews the paperwork, cuts out 99% of the background noise, like the feeling of clothes on your skin or the hum of the refrigerator, and only sends the most important stuff upstairs. Hearing, touch, taste, all of them humbly wait in the reception area, going through strict censorship. But the sense of smell has a VIP pass that lets it kick the boss's door wide open. Molecules of a scented substance enter your nostrils and collide with the olfactory epithelium. Right there, on a tiny patch deep inside your nose, things get truly insane from an anatomical standpoint. Your olfactory receptors aren't just cells, they're bare nerve endings that run directly from your brain itself. Think about it. Smell is the only sensory channel where brain tissue is in direct contact with the outside world. Your eyes are protected by the lens, your ears by the eardrum, but your olfactory neurons literally poke out through the cribriform plate of the ethmoid bone. Basically, every time you inhale, you're touching the world with your exposed brain. Not the most hygienic design, but evolution didn't have time for aesthetics. Imagine you're a tiny nocturnal mammal from the late Mesozoic era. Absolute darkness all around you, your eyes are almost useless, and there's a strange rustling in the bushes. Your ears pick up the sound, but they can't tell you who's lurking there, a harmless beetle or a hungry reptile. The only thing that saves your life is your ability to catch a single molecule of someone else's sweat in the cold night air. Your survival depends on reaction speed. If you waste even half a second analyzing the scent logically, you become someone's dinner. That's exactly why nature decided to cut consciousness out of the loop entirely. The signal from the receptors shoots straight into the olfactory bulb, and from there, bypassing the thalamus entirely, it rockets off to two destinations, the amygdala and the hippocampus. The amygdala is our ancient hub for fear, rage, and survival. It doesn't know how to reason, it only knows how to hit the alarm button and flood your body with adrenaline. The hippocampus is the archive where the most vivid emotional snapshots of your life are stored. The olfactory signal bursts in there like a bank robber, blowing open the vaults of memory. Meanwhile, your conscious cortex, your vaunted neocortex, is still lazily decoding the information and trying to find the right words. Oh, I think that smells like tangerines. But your limbic system is already throwing a party. The amygdala released pleasure hormones. The hippocampus unrolled a panoramic view of New Year's from your childhood, and warmth spreads through your body. You felt the emotion before you even understood what happened. It's a biological hack, a hardware backdoor in the operating system of your mind. We inherited this system without any changes. Our conscious self, which loves to pride itself on logic, always ends up playing the deceived husband when it comes to smells. It's the last to know. You can be instantly calmed, angered, scared, or made hungry just by spraying the right chemical formula into the air. Our emotional balance depends entirely on the molecular composition of the atmosphere. But there's another side to this evolutionary coin. If this direct channel to our emotions is so vulnerable, it can also be used as the perfect weapon. And in April of 1915, on the muddy fields of Belgium, humanity first realized just how nightmarish that olfactory trap could be. On April 22, 1915, the fields near the Belgian city of Ypres were basked in warm spring weather. Soldiers in the trenches were suffering from the unbearable stench of decaying bodies, gunpowder smoke, and human waste. Suddenly, a strange greenish-yellow cloud began creeping from the German lines. But along with it, The wind carried a surprisingly pleasant, sweet smell of fresh-cut hay and decaying leaves. It felt like a long-awaited taste of home in the middle of this hell. The soldiers eagerly breathed in that fresh spring aroma, remembering their farms, meadows, and peaceful lives. They had no idea they were inhaling phosgene. Unlike chlorine, which instantly burns the eyes and makes you cough, phosgene works softly and treacherously. It smells like summer. Its chemical formula tricks your receptors, not triggering an immediate spasm of the airways. People calmly breathed it in for minutes while the poison molecules seeped into their lungs and reacted with water, turning into hydrochloric acid. The first symptoms didn't show up until hours later, when the soldiers were already asleep in their dugouts. They woke up gasping for air. Their lungs were rapidly filling with plasma. They were literally drowning in their own blood on dry ground. Those lucky enough to survive that meat grinder made it home. But the war never let them go. For decades, a simple walk through a blooming meadow, or the smell of cut grass in the backyard of a peaceful house, would turn elderly men pale, trembling with terror. Their heart rates would spike to 140 beats per minute, their lungs would seize up, and the scenes of trench hell would flash before their eyes with absolute clarity. From a logical standpoint, it was absurd. The rational part of the brain, the neocortex, perfectly understood. The war ended 50 years ago. They were in a quiet Belgian village, and their grandson was playing nearby. But the limbic system couldn't care less about that logic. The signal from the nose's receptors went straight to the amygdala and hippocampus, bypassing the thalamus. The body got the chemical command, "death," before the old man could even realize it was just a neighbor mowing the lawn. Why were these memories so stubborn? In 2006, scientists at Utrecht University conducted an experiment. They compared how quickly memories fade when triggered by sounds, images, and smells. It turned out that visual and auditory traces in our memory are very plastic. The brain constantly rewrites them, archives them, compresses them, and alters them under the influence of new information. But the olfactory trace remains unchanged for life. The reason lies in the synaptic plasticity of the hippocampus. When smell molecules bind to receptors, it triggers a massive release of glutamate, the main neurotransmitter for learning and memory. The smell literally burns a deep groove in the hippocampus, forming neural connections that can't be erased. It's the most secure safe in your head. So here's the answer. Why smells instantly throw us back into the past, triggering detailed hallucinations? Because this isn't a metaphor or a poetic exaggeration. It's pure physiology. Smell is the only sensory channel that plugs directly into your emotion and memory centers. It works without censorship, without filters, and without your consent. It's an evolutionary survival weapon, designed to make you instantly recall deadly danger or a food source. Your nose is a hardware access port through which external chemistry can directly control your internal state, rolling a movie of memories with perfect accuracy and emotional intensity. We've found the answer to the big question of this investigation. The mystery is gone. The mechanism is clear. The biological code is cracked. You'd think we could wrap it up right here, but that's just the first level of the rabbit hole. So far, we've talked about cases where a real smell triggers real memories. But what happens when this delicate, hypersensitive piece of equipment malfunctions? What if your own brain, behind your back, starts generating smells out of thin air, locking you in a room with an invisible, nightmarish ghost? Imagine this. You wake up in the middle of the night to the sharp smell of burning. You jump out of bed, run to the kitchen, check the outlets. Everything's perfectly fine. You open the window, but outside it just smells like the cool night air. You go back to your room, lie down, but that suffocating stench of burnt rubber doesn't go away. It follows you everywhere. You brush your teeth, drink your coffee, head to work, but the smell is glued to your nostrils. You start to think you're losing your mind, and you're not far off. In medicine, this phenomenon is called phantasmia, an olfactory hallucination. And unlike visual ghosts, which you can simply close your eyes to escape, a phantom smell is impossible to get rid of. You're trapped in the same space with an invisible source of filth that's inside your own head. Back in 1899, British neurologist John Hewlings Jackson detailed the strange symptom in his patients. Right before losing consciousness or having an epileptic seizure, they'd complain of a sudden, suffocating smell of rotting meat, sulfur, or decay. Jackson called it an uncinate crisis, named after the uncus, the hook-shaped part of the temporal lobe where the olfactory cortex sits. If a tumor starts growing in that area, or a pathological electrical focus develops, the neurons start firing chaotically. To your conscious mind, it feels exactly like someone just brought a bucket of rotten fish right into the room. Your brain literally synthesizes reality out of nothing. And this illusion is so powerful that patients would fall into severe paranoia, throw away fresh food thinking their relatives were trying to poison them, or starve themselves to the point of exhaustion. But sometimes, olfactory hallucinations can infect entire cities. In September 1940, the quiet little town of Mattoon, Illinois, was gripped by panic. A local woman claimed she smelled a sickly sweet gas in her bedroom, after which her legs went numb and she started feeling nauseous. Within days, similar reports flooded in from all over town. Dozens of people insisted a mysterious madman, the Mad Gasser, was creeping into their homes and spraying poison through open windows. Chaos gripped the city. Residents patrolled the streets armed, and the FBI was running itself ragged. But experts found no trace of gas or any outsiders. It was a classic case of mass hysteria. One real incident of a household gas leak collided with wartime anxiety and set off a chain reaction. The brains of frightened people, convinced of the threat, generated the smell of poison themselves and obediently mimicked symptoms of poisoning. The limbic system doesn't even need real molecules. Panic alone is enough to make your body physically suffer. Here, science hits a frightening boundary of understanding. When the brain misfires, why are olfactory hallucinations almost never pleasant? Why don't people experiencing uncinate crises smell strawberries, fresh bread, or vanilla? It's almost always rot, smoke, sulfur fumes, or chemical poison. It seems our olfactory system is wired for worst-case scenarios from the start. Evolution didn't shape our nose for enjoying flower scents. It shaped it to catch death, disease, and danger in time. And when the brain's internal electrical network goes haywire, the safety system defaults to blasting the loudest alarm possible. The brain thinks, if the sensor is broken, then everything around must be burning and rotting. Phantom smells are a loud, dramatic system crash, like the scream of a fire alarm. But in neurology, there's another kind of failure. Quiet, barely noticeable, and therefore far more terrifying. What happens when your sense of smell doesn't start screaming about danger, but slowly and silently dies, taking a part of your mind with it? Most people view the loss of smell, anosmia, as a frustrating but minor nuisance. So what if you can't smell your morning coffee or rain on asphalt? You can still function. But modern medicine sees it very differently. A sudden fading sense of smell isn't just a local nose problem. Often, it's the first warning sign that a quiet, irreversible process of destruction has begun inside your skull. In Parkinson's and Alzheimer's diseases, abnormal proteins start building up in the cells of the olfactory bulb 10, sometimes even 15 years before a person's first hand tremor or the memory of a loved one's name fades. The olfactory tract is the most exposed gateway into our brain. There's no blood-brain barrier here to shield the central nervous system from viruses and toxins. It's an open back door for any contaminant from the environment. Research from Columbia University shows alarming numbers. Elderly people with significant smell loss have a risk of developing dementia within the next 5 years that is exactly 3 times higher. The brain simply starts shutting down its olfactory centers first when neuron destruction begins. The sensitivity of this ancient system is breathtaking. Our nose can detect the organic compound geosmin, that smell of wet earth after rain, at a concentration of just 5 parts per trillion. To grasp that scale, it's equivalent to 1 teaspoon of the substance dissolved in 2 enormous Olympic swimming pools. For our ancestors, this phenomenal sensitivity was a matter of survival. It helped them find water and fertile soil from miles away. On the flip side of evolution is our reaction to methyl mercaptan, the gas released when protein rots. Its molecules trigger an instant gag reflex and a surge of anxiety. The limbic system reacts immediately, shutting down rational thought and screaming, "There's death here." Naturally, the perfume industry couldn't ignore this evolutionary hack. In 1888, German chemist Albert Bauer was trying to create a new type of explosive when he accidentally synthesized a compound with a powerful musky scent. Natural musk came from the glands of musk deer and was more expensive than gold. It's a pure animal pheromone, signaling readiness to mate. Bauer's artificial musk did the same thing. Its molecules locked onto TAAR receptors in the nose, sending signals straight to the hypothalamus, the body's hormone regulator. That scent tricks ancient brain structures, triggering physiological arousal. You think you're buying a high-end perfume in a store that accentuates your individuality, but to your limbic system, it's just a cheap imitation of explosives, disguised as the mating call of a musk deer. We love to talk about free will, conscious choice, and how intellect sets us apart from animals. We build skyscrapers, launch rockets into space, and write philosophical treatises. But the truth is, our entire civilizational superstructure is powerless against a couple of invisible molecules. A gentle breeze is enough to hack your vaunted logic completely. One molecule will make your heart race in panic, transporting you back to the trenches of World War I or a long-forgotten childhood. Another will make you shell out a pile of cash for a bottle of chemical surrogate, obeying the call of your ancestors. We are still the same blind mammals, groping in the dark, trying to navigate by smell, hoping this path doesn't lead us off a cliff.